mean, this guy obviously knew how to lean into his ambitions and felt like he had no limits.
This is a point of conviction for me. In the last episode, I had a clip where I talked about bending the rules.
Yeah.
And I want to just set some of it clear, is that this is an example of bending the rules. Nothing he did was illegal.
Yes.
Nothing he did was illegal.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that you should do these things, but you can't argue the fact that he is still a billionaire.
Yeah.
Wildly successful. And so, talking about bending the rules, here we go.
Yeah. Well, I think he's yet to be successful because he didn't quite hit his mark. But
he's a billionaire.
But he came away with...
I'll miss that mark every time.
But he came away with a nice compensation prize.
Exactly.
Which is that. And so...
Win. All right.
What's up, man?
We are back.
Are we back on another
Back in the
Founders Drive?
car. Back on another Founders Drive.
Are we doing this right now? Are we
It's
live?
still freezing, man. We are live.
Are we live? Are we live?
Live for the people.
We live for the people right now? What's good, man? What's good?
Yeah, welcome back to Founders Drive, everybody, where we take a founder and give you guys some game.
Yes.
Not only here, but also in the super secret episodes that are only going to be published on Constance.com with the link in the description below.
Yes. Yes. Founders Drive.
That's
Where we
right.
study these different founders over the greatest founders in history, the greatest founders today, and we're building a company, so we want to learn about this stuff. We figure, hey, let's do this in public. Let's share this with everybody, and you can learn along with us. Now, as Jake was saying, you can learn a lot from what we talk about here because we're obviously learning a lot in person, this information.
Yeah.
You will learn way more on our super secret edition of Founders Drive. It's just, that's where all of the game gets revealed. We keep a certain amount of information for that group of people that goes over and finds that.
Yep.
It's not just applicable to business, it's applicable to life. But I mean, specifically if you're an entrepreneur, you are crazy if you don't at least go and look and say, hey, there's something to learn there. I have to lift up my finger and press a button to go and learn all of this information, and you just not do it. It just makes no sense to not do. I mean, if somebody was doing this for me, I'd be like, yes, especially for free, because it's not going to be for free
Forever.
In fact, by the end of this month, we're gonna start blocking off all of the episodes and paywalling them for people that are actually paying members. Right now, if you go there, you can watch all those episodes. We have a lot of really dope information that you can't find on ChatGPT.
Dude, sometimes I rewatch them.
Yeah.
Because there's so much game in there.
There's too much, dude. And it's like always a reminder to be like, hey, man, I'm stuck with a problem. Just thinking about how a former founder, former entrepreneur solved a similar problem.
Yep.
It's irreplaceable. It's irreplaceable.
We're all in business, and if you're not in business, you should be in business.
Should be in business.
But basically, don't try and go at it brand new. Stand on the shoulders of giants, and these are the giants we're talking about.
100%. So we're doing all this work. We want to share with people. We want to share with you.
Yep.
So, take advantage of it. So after February, we're going to, I don't know, do we want to, listen, we're not going to block off all of them, but we'll maybe keep like the previous 4 open in like a rolling basis.
Hey, we might change our mind by the end of February.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
You guys better get in right now. Check out these episodes because they won't be there forever.
Exactly. So yes. With that being said, Constance.
Which is our business.
Yes. What is Constance?
Constance is the place for everybody who's watching this. If you don't have a business right now and you think, oh, it's going to be too hard for me to set up, I don't have anything to sell, just get that out of your brain. Constance is the easy one-stop shop for you to set up your business, to set up your landing page, which can let everybody know how you're interacting on the internet.
Yeah.
If you're on socials, if you're on LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, it doesn't really matter. Make sure you have one spot so everyone can connect with you, and then we'll help you grow into a business to be able to sell items, to be able to sell your time, and to monetize your unique experience here on Earth.
100%. And I've been thinking a lot about this lately. I've been thinking about just the core mission of Constance.
Yes.
Right now, we're living in a time that's very uncertain, but it's also very liberating because of the technology that's been introduced.
100%.
We have all of these layoffs. In January alone, there was 52,000 announced layoffs, and that's on top of all of the layoffs that were there last year.
Yeah.
Last year,
we're in the first month, second month of the year.
And I think it's going to increase. You listen to the top CEOs, the top financial, economic movers, people in politics talking about how it's getting a little foggy in here. But people in politics, people from Bernie Sanders, etc., that are talking about the impact of artificial intelligence and how that's playing out in the economy.
100%.
They're estimating that hundreds of millions of jobs are going to be replaced, and they don't know when or how it's going to happen. They don't know the immediate impact. Of course, on the other side of this, I think that we live in a much better world, a much better society. But in the immediate, I think there's going to be a lot of disruption. And it's not a day or two of disruption. It could be weeks, months, or a year of disruption. And so the only way to prepare for that disruption is by being proactive and taking that step to really take advantage of your skills and your opportunities and your gifts. And part of that gift is the ability to create. And I believe that being a creator is a gift that all people have, but we've been underutilizing just because of circumstances. We've had this problem where we've had to go and do work that we hate doing. Work is just an expenditure of energy, right?
Yep.
So we've been doing this work that we hate doing for generations and generations and generations, and we finally live in a time where we can go and pursue what we're interested in. And if we have a couple skills, we can really turn that into a business. And so that's part of what we go into on this podcast. That's part of why we build Constance, because we don't want you just talking about it and being like, this is great. We want you to actually have the tools to go out there and execute. And so we're building these landing pages, or these websites that can operate as landing pages, these websites that can operate as digital contact cards for when you're in person. But there's this enhanced technology that's behind it that as soon as you sign up and you log in, you'll start to understand the whole scope of what we're doing. And we're going to make that more and more accessible to people as we go along and as we continue to go down this path.
Yeah, check it out.
Check it out.
But without further ado, you want to get into the founder of this week?
I would love to get into the founder of this week.
This is going to be a fun one.
Yes,
Some of you guys probably skipped that entire intro and just starting the video now.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Welcome.
But the founder this
You
week...
missed out on a lot. You missed out on something that's so critically important that...
I feel like most people might just see the timestamp and skip, but
yeah.
Here we go. The founder for this week is an iconic person who really got into the limelight, I would say, the past 15 years is really where he made his splash. 20 years?
About 15, 20 years.
It's pretty recent.
Yeah.
You know, he wasn't building in the 80s or 90s. I mean,
No.
he was, but not at this scale.
No. Yeah.
And so we are talking about
Who?
Adam Neumann,
Adam Neumann.
the founder, the CEO, the former CEO of WeWork.
Yeah.
Now the founder and CEO of Flow.
So where do we start with Adam Neumann?
Let's just go on a quick background and then get into some of the juicy details around WeWork. I think a lot of people have seen the headlines and know some about the story,
Yeah.
but let's give a good background and then we can get into the business thoughts around it.
Okay, I am very keen on getting into some of the business thoughts about this because I've had a change of opinion.
I know, and I'm excited to talk about this.
All right, so the core areas of Adam's life. So first, he was born in 1979, April 25th, in Israel.
Yep.
Beersheba, I think that's how you say it.
I wouldn't know.
Yeah, he was born to obviously his parents. And
Yep. Two doctors, actually.
Yeah, two doctors. They divorced when he was 7, and that started a just wave of a chaotic lifestyle as a kid.
Moving around a lot, not
Yeah.
having the same friends, not having the same school.
He moved to 13 times.
Yeah.
His mom had bipolar. His mom was bipolar. Yeah, had bipolar. She was a doctor. Both of his parents were doctors.
Right.
So very intelligent, but it's not the same as it is in America. It was a social service, and so they didn't get paid like they got paid here, but they still had to work.
It's a social health system.
Right.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so that was a difficult time for him growing up. Then he also had dyslexia with both numbers and words, and so it was very hard for him to learn by the traditional methods that people did. And that started to force him to rely on other skill sets like observation, reading a room, connecting with people,
Charisma.
developing that charm and charisma, and his ability to sway a room and move people.
Yes.
So that was like a core of his childhood. He grew up on the kibbutz.
Yes, that's a very interesting thing that we definitely need to touch on. It's essentially a commune living.
Yeah.
Where they specifically in Adam's case, they had a section where most of the kids, right, like anywhere from like 2 to 18, where they would kind of take care of themselves. They'd be in their own little commune. They'd, go home for dinner with their parents and stuff, and they'd have some family time. But for the most part, you would be with other people, I guess, of that age and without adult supervision, essentially. And he talks a lot about having to find the people to connect with in these communities that he keeps jumping around to, and understanding by looking at a room who are the people that he should be connecting with and how he connects with those people, being able to spot that, I'm going to go, meet with the nerds or meet with the chess players or the jocks, whatever that would be in America. Reading that room and then saying, okay, I'm going to use my skills of persuasion to become an in, to be in that in crowd.
Yeah, he was a child saying, I'm going to use my skills of persuasion to...
He probably did it pretty unconsciously, and that's just how it played out. Now he's reflecting on it. But it's very interesting because some of these things start appearing at a very young age.
Yeah, 100%. He, I think, like, that's a big thing, is moving as a child. I moved when I was 11 from Canada to America. And it is very, like, it's a lot taking up a new culture and then having to adapt and make new friends. He said that he made friends a lot of times with the misfits. But then he was really proud of taking that group of misfits, that band of misfits, and then introducing them to the more popular groups. And I think that that's a very powerful skill to be able to harness and develop as a kid, whether it's consciously or subconsciously. So that was a big part of his childhood. He ended up going into the Navy and serving 2 more years than was required of the typical Israeli adults.
Citizen,
and I think like something just to consider around that is like how childhoods play a role in shaping the entrepreneur. And I think that's why we start with the childhood and the timelines when we go through these episodes, is because you start to see markers earlier. You can start to see a foreshadowing of Elon Musk, of Steve Jobs when they're kids and their personalities. And you see how that's exaggerated. You even see it with somebody like Robert Smith.
Yeah, or like Paul Graham.
Right?
I'm watching TV at 13.
And I just made this decision, like, what am I doing this for? So I don't know, it's really interesting to see those trace markers of how people develop. Even people on the completely different spectrum of like a 50 Cent. Where it's like you're on the streets and you start developing, habits and ways of navigating based off of what you're seeing that changes how you develop as a person and later as a business person.
Specifically with Adam, calling out this commune living, he actually had a great time doing it. And that's what's going to play into the foreshadowing for his career. But he actually thought it was a better way to live, is in a commune, supported with a community. And we have a lot of those thoughts in terms of a digital online community. But that's really the thing, is that impressed on him the idea that you can actually live a better, more fulfilled life in a community.
So next phase of his life, he around 2001, he moves to New York. I believe his sister was here modeling, and he ends up going to school here at, what is that, the Baruch College, Ziegler's?
I think it was a local college.
Okay.
I don't believe he graduated at the time.
He's 4 credits shy. Every great founder needs to drop out of college.
That's the I don't know if that's super true, but it is a common pattern we see where somebody they don't just drop out for the shits and giggles. They actually have an opportunity to go chase. And that's why they're doing it, because the opportunity is just in front of them, and it's just worth your time because you have a finite amount of time to go do that at that time.
That being said, he did go back and finish at 38.
Exactly.
But it's just something to know. So he ended up starting his first company around that time called Crawlers. Crawlers was
I think it was a baby outfit seller, right? So they would build these onesies and these pajamas for babies that had knee pads sewn into the actual fabric, which it's interesting. It's certainly something I feel like a parent would want for their kid.
Well, babies can't walk, so they are on their knees.
Yeah, exactly.
And crawling around. You got to make sure that they take care of those knees. But that was not a success. But then he also had this other venture where it was collapsible heels.
For women, that's right. Or I guess men if you wanted to, but collapsible heels. That was another fashion related business that he ran.
Didn't work out.
No.
But he learned from them, and one thing that's an interesting characteristic of Adam Neumann is he wears his failures like badges. They're a source of credibility for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And also not scared to start something new or to fail.
I think you have to develop that muscle when you're in any field, really, where it's some type of creative work where you have to release something or deliver something. Is you have to get in the habit of stopping and saying, okay, this is done, because that feeling of, oh, this can be better, and slightly tweaking things not only can be
analysis paralysis.
Yeah, well, not even just that. It's like the I think analysis paralysis is before what I'm talking about. I'm talking about you've built your thing and you consistently keep tweaking it, but you don't release it and you don't get to done, and so then you don't get good at identifying when something's done or can add value to somebody else in the market.
Yeah,
you get caught up in how much better it can be, and that can be a problem, especially if you continue to do it and you start tweaking it for the worse without getting feedback from somebody else.
Yeah, like done paralysis.
Yeah,
Stuff like that where 100% you need to get that feedback and you need to know when to ship something. Doesn't have to be perfect. It needs to add a little bit of value so you can get feedback on what to build next.
Man, one thing that I continuously look to is the companies that Elon builds is he always delivers.
Okay.
I mean, what are we doing?
Just ran a red light on camera?
Yeah, just because you can honk, it doesn't...
Hey, we're in the real world.
Oh my
and
God.
This is real things happening.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's 100% real.
This is live.
We are really founders driving. Right? This is a real
there's no tow truck towing us.
Yeah.
I'm just pretending.
Yeah, no. We're driving.
But yeah, you said Elon's companies, the stuff that he builds.
Yeah, he will release things, and it might not be perfect, but they just iterate so fast. It's like, of course, the things that are detrimental don't get released, but pixel pushing here and there and those little things, sometimes they get released and you can see it, but then they're not there for long and they just fail way faster and have more successes at a higher frequency than the average company that's out there.
Yeah, and also don't fail without a feedback loop. That is just what you're wasting time.
That's a bar. Don't fail without a feedback loop. There was this guy when I was in college who had this program that he put together called Failure Lab. And I get the whole idea of learning from your failures, don't be afraid of failures, et cetera. But it was just so strange to me that the whole idea was...
You're branding on that?
It's like, let's study how we fail. Like, I guess you could just summarize, but the whole thing is like, just fail fast, but don't fail without feedback loop.
Don't fail without a feedback.
Yeah, man. So yeah, that's that was that whole part. He got a couple of his early failures in, but then he ended up moving into another venture, which ended up being the foundation, the basically like the MVP of
the rest of his life.
Right, exactly. And this was GreenDesk.
Yeah, GreenDesk was cool.
Right.
I actually thought that was like a really cool, I guess, business that they were able to not scale. And I think that's an important thing, is that they didn't scale it. And let's talk about what GreenDesk was.
Yeah, so GreenDesk, they basically convinced a landlord to lease out an entire floor of a building, and they turned it into a co-working space. And this was back in 2008, and this was in Brooklyn. And his partner was Miguel McKelvey, and I can't tell if that's Spanish or Irish, but Miguel McKelvey.
I think it's Irish, but
The Miguel?
I think the last name.
McKelvey's Irish.
Yeah.
Miguel is,
True.
Yeah. So within a year they had 100+ office spaces leased, and they were charging between $350 and $2,400. And they ended up selling GreenDesk back to the landlord, getting some cash, and then this allowed them to take that next step and develop WeWork, which was a more ambitious project where they were going to do co-working spaces in their own buildings as opposed to another person's building.
Something we see, another pattern. A lot of these generational founders are stepping stones. They're using the companies that they've built and the successes they've had as stepping stones to the next venture. Yeah. You know, it's most people don't hit it out of the park on their first try. And if you do, it's insanely lucky. Obviously it's not all luck, but you do have to kind of guard yourself. You know, it's kind of the same with like if young people get rich really quickly. They don't go through that hard work of building it, and so can be very easily taken away.
And that's a whole
Exactly.
other line of thinking that we can go down. But we were talking about that earlier. That's why it's really interesting is it's an adaptation period. You have an adaptation period as an entrepreneur, and that can come before, during, or after the process. You look at somebody like Estee Lauder who really started her to gain momentum and gain motion when she was in her late 30s, early 40s.
Right.
And she talks about how starting her company as an older woman was an advantage, not a hindrance.
Yes.
Because she had all of these reps already. So that's an example to me of somebody who's adapting after the fact, goes in and is able to really execute because she's refined her process. And it wasn't without any hiccups, but she knew what she was there for. She knew what her calling was there, and that was a different process. There's people that go through it, get success early, and then have to adapt after the fact. That's like a Zuckerberg.
Who successfully did it.
Well, he successfully did it, but we didn't see what happened behind the fact. And there wasn't a clean adaptation period in the sense that you even look at him after in his late, 30s, early 40s, he now is like cool Zuck. When normally people are doing that in their 20s, but he had to go through this whole period of running a multi-billion-dollar company where he didn't really have the time to find out what he liked, what he didn't, develop his hobbies. And you see him now in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He does wave surf, or he surfs and does all these different things. And I think that's a key indicator of that happening after the fact. You see how kind of awkward he was, and he wasn't fully
robotic.
Right, he wasn't fully who he is today. He wasn't fully formed. He was an older model. Some things were outdated, but I think there's that, and then there's also people, which is probably more like us, where we're kind of in the middle of it, we're adapting while we're building, as opposed to while we're finding
success. At least that's the
goal. So it's a little bit closer,
it's
a little bit closer in terms of outward success and then internal, evolution. And I think success can only be maintained when both are in alignment, or the levels are aligned. Otherwise, there's going to be some type of emotional imbalance. That can cause you to lose what you have, can cause you to never get to where you need to get to, or can cause you to just have
or just not get to your fullest potential. Because you could be cruising at 15,000 feet when you could be at 30,000. It's interesting. So going back to the whole GreenDesk stuff, getting that win out of the way, to really start them on the career trajectory. GreenDesk, very interesting. It plays into the next company that he starts, which I believe is WeWork. Which everybody knows. They have headlines. They had a bunch of headlines for the way that they ran their company and for the founder. And it's interesting because I think some of these headlines were where we started the research.
It is.
It's really that was the perception that we had going into this.
So let's talk a little bit about WeWork.
What is WeWork?
Started in 2010. WeWork launched at 154 Grand Street, SoHo, New York City. Joel Schreiber, a Brooklyn real estate developer, invested $15 million for 33% equity. Neumann was the CEO. McKelvey is the chief culture officer. In 2012, 6 New York locations were opened, approaching $100 million valuation of the company itself. In 2014, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, and Fidelity invested $350 million, bringing WeWork to a $4.6 billion valuation. The name WeWork was suggested by a talent agent at a party, and Neumann couldn't come up with anything else. So, that is pretty interesting considering what he ended up, his actions that he took later.
So what is the fundamental business model of WeWork? We're going to have co-working space that we can sublease out to people. So let's say we have a floor of a building, and we wanted to have maybe 30 desks here. I could part out the time that people are spending at 30 desks, either per person, per company, 10 desks at a time, depending on what you would need. And that's the business model. It gets a little bit interesting when you start digging into, okay, if you're on one floor, that's cool, but who owns the building?
Who owns the building? Well, it gets really, really interesting because you think it was WeWork, but
sometimes it was.
Sometimes it was, sometimes it wasn't. So a couple different things goes just before we get into those threads that you brought up. We go So Neumann didn't pitch WeWork as an office space. He pitched it as community and the future of work. He called it the kibbutz 2.0, which, I mean, sounds idealistic, but it's just the way that he branded it and it reframed what he did. And they were buying part of like this whole movement of transformation from old work to new work, old building spaces to new building spaces. One thing that I heard him talk about in an interview is how he thought it was insane how when he was in New York, he would go up and down these elevators and no one would ever talk to each other.
No one said hello.
Yeah. Which
That's
is weird when you go to New York, but when you're in New York, you're like, oh no, this is like the normal. Like people are commodity in New York.
Yes.
What's interesting too is around COVID when everybody was in their apartments and couldn't escape. I went to New York and people were so friendly outside. Like they were just kind outside. Hi, how are you? I went back to New York maybe like a year or two later and everybody was back to normal. Like, yo, bro, why are you speaking to me? Like you must be from the Midwest or something like that. Because what? Why? You're wasting my time. Well, I'm walking here. What do you want? Huh? What do you want?
Exactly.
So,
but that's the vision. That's the vision. It's like we're going to be a community and we're going to have a better, more fulfilling life if we do it that way.
Yeah. And so he talks about co-working plus community plus a platform and tech. And so that's interesting because the language that he used, he was trying to frame it as a tech company. And this is the mindset that I fell into earlier, right?
Very important.
Is he was framing it as a tech company, but it was being looked at, when you look at the assets, it was a real estate company.
Correct.
And a lot of people still look at it as a real estate company. I probably looked at it as a real estate company until, what time is it? Until about 16 hours ago.
Okay. Okay.
But it's also really interesting because we worked at Rocket, which is it's in the mortgage space.
Right.
And when you look at the full family companies and the whole portfolio, there are a lot of real estate companies in there. But the main thing is when they went public, they tried to IPO as a tech company.
Yes.
And they weren't received that way.
So why is that important?
Huh?
Why is that important? Why
for the Rocket situation or the WeWork situation?
For both.
Well, the big thing is multiples.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like tech
and
companies.
What are those multiples?
Ridiculous. I mean, tech companies are just looked at as having way higher multiples, especially in the software era, because the marginal cost for adding a user once you have your infrastructure in place is negligible. And so you can literally start to support more people without the physical constraint that you do with a real estate company.
Real estate, you obviously need more bricks. You need more concrete.
And so you're limited in that way.
Yes.
And so him framing it as a tech company was his first magic trick, I would say. At least that's the way that I looked at it. But let's pause there for a second.
Yeah.
Before we kind of go down this WeWork rabbit hole. What are your thoughts on the tech real estate dynamic there?
To me, it was pretty obvious, especially at the time, and this is from the 2015 mark.
Yeah.
It was obvious that Adam had a lot of conviction in his vision. You'd see him on stage in bare feet. You'd see him talk about his company in a very cult-like atmosphere. And so I thought he believed very much in what his company was doing. And I think he believed it could be at those multiples. However, when I looked at what the company was actually doing in terms of how they were spending money, their income, their losses, and stuff like that, I don't think that he portrayed the tech as much as he should have with WeWork. And he did that a little bit differently with Flow. I think Flow actually does have some technical advantages to the other real estate companies that might be out there. And so when we talk about that, I think that's way different.
Yeah. Flow is his current venture.
Exactly. Same idea, kind of. But
no, yeah. It is. It's definitely an evolution of the idea.
And yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's an evolution. So it's not the exact same, but it's an evolution. And so yeah, I think you can talk about it being a tech company, but you need to kind of show the tech. And I think if he did a better job showing the tech, he would have gotten the multiples and that IPO that he was expecting.
Okay, so tech company, in the way that he positioned it as a tech company, is it genius or is it fraud?
Ooh, is it or fraud?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's tough. I don't know if I would say it would be either one of those extremes.
Is Adam Neumann a con artist or a visionary?
Those are so close. You have to have a lot of confidence to have a vision. And so I don't know if it's that extreme. But it's interesting that if you have that much conviction, why would you sell so many shares before an IPO?
Why would you sell? So yes.
You know what I mean? Like, I think everything kind of lines up until you get to the actions that are taken. And just Adam, I think, going so fast, so big, so visionary, being enabled by some of his investors, got to the point where if your money's not in the vehicle that you're saying and preaching all this stuff, and you actually take a large cut out, now I can see where your true loyalty lies. And so for me, that was kind of what gave me a bad, rap on the whole situation. Was like, okay, if you believe all the things you say, you would have left your money in. Yeah. IPO'd, it would have done what it did, and then you'd be in a different situation. Instead, he took a large chunk out of it out before the IPO happened, and then, history happened after that. But
yeah.
What are your thoughts?
So for the longest time, I thought that it was a real estate company. In my mind, that's where they were making their money. That's the assets that they had on the books. But listening to him talk, especially in the context of Flow, his new company,
right,
I started to see what he was talking about. I've started to understand the vision, and I'm starting to see where he might have been going with things. But when I go back and revisit the facts, I still think it's a little shady. So it's complicated is where I'm at right now. But I want to read us through some more facts, and then we can talk maybe a little bit about like what he's doing now and with Flow.
And up until this point in the Founders Drive, you guys, if you guys are watching this, put a comment in the description below. What do you guys think, given all the information we presented and your historical knowledge, of what you think of Adam Neumann?
Yeah.
Because I want to see if it changes by the end of this episode or by the end of Super Secret.
No, that's a good call out right there. All right, so here are the facts around Adam Neumann, and the WeWork craze. So in 2015, we enter into the SoftBank era. And this is when he's
as an investor,
right? And this is where he's at his hottest. It's when he's at his peak. In 2015, they have 51 locations across U.S., Europe, Israel. They even have a location over here in Detroit.
Yeah. I've worked out of that building.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
He was named as Ernst & Young's Entrepreneur of the Year.
Yep.
He was that was in 2015. 2016, the valuation hit $16 billion. In June 2016, they lay off 7% of the staff. And then they immediately throw a tequila party with Run DMC performing. Yeah. Which kind of seems like a theme of how he operates. It's like a party, a visionary party. Anyways, let's keep going. So 2017, SoftBank invests $4.4 billion and their valuation bumps up to $20 billion. Yeah. He's also in 2018 named Time Magazine's 100 most influential people, and in 2019 SoftBank invested another $2 billion and the valuation peaked at $47 billion.
And this is all before the IPO.
This is all before the IPO.
It's all private money.
Yep. They changed their mission statement to elevate the world's consciousness, and a notable thing is that his relationship, especially with the SoftBank people, Masayoshi?
Yeah. Yep. That's the CEO. Yep.
Yeah. He basically had this meeting with Adam Neumann, and he said, "Who do you think wins, the smart person or the crazy person?" And Adam Neumann goes, "The crazy person." And Masayoshi-san says, "You're not crazy enough." Basically enabling him to be more aggressive in how much real estate he was buying and what they were actually doing, how he was running the business, and how he was going after his vision.
Which is fine if you're an advisor. Yeah. But it changes the dynamic if you're saying this and then also giving him a check to say, hey, we talked about this strategy. Also, here's the money to go do that. You know what I mean?
He was bought in. He was bought in. And so there's this whole aspect of, and this is what I want to go into in Super Secret.
Sure.
Is this aspect of this term called the reality distortion field. We talked about it with Steve Jobs. We've talked about it with Elon Musk. But there's a few other people that this is notable around. Bill Clinton, Donald Trump is another person that, like, when you're around them, it seems like the regular rules of reality. That's some alliteration for you. The regular rules of reality don't
apply
the same anymore. They're different. And so when we look at Adam Neumann, he's case in point one of those people. So how do you have a tech company that owns real estate and is now worth $47 billion before they IPO.
Yeah.
And they're not making revenue, and they just keep getting these big billion-dollar checks.
Right.
It's like, what's happening there? There has to be some distortion of reality. And I think, case in point, this is that. But a very key example is, I was watching that WeWork documentary.
Yes, the
one
Hulu one.
Yeah, the one that they put out on Hulu. And they were talking about, one of the journalists there was talking about how he went to the WeWork and, or maybe it was an employee, but somebody ordered a coffee or a cappuccino, and then the person got him a coffee, and he was like, no, I ordered a cappuccino. He's like, no, here we call the coffees cappuccinos and the cappuccinos coffee. And it turns out it's because Adam Neumann mistakenly called one the other, and nobody wanted to correct him. Yeah. They were like, oh, I mean, I guess that's just what it is, that one. So some of the things that he's doing, whether again it's conscious or not, I think has a real effect on our perception as people and how we perceive reality. And I think it's a huge thing to call out, because in this whole time where he was talking, when we were talking about WeWork, this whole era, to me it's just he was just one big walking reality distortion field.
I would agree with that. And you can tell because it wasn't just SoftBank that decided to invest. So, SoftBank was just the lead.
Yeah, but you have JP
Then you've
Morgan,
got the big players, JP Morgan, Fidelity, Goldman Sachs, right? Who say, oh, wow, SoftBank let a $5 billion infusion into this company. Let me see if I can add some more money on the table, without even doing any due diligence. Same happened with FTX and stuff like that.
But I think, like, so we say no due diligence, but are they doing due diligence or not?
The type of due diligence. Okay. Where you would step back from the deal and say, hey, if I didn't already have money on the table, if I didn't already know these people, looking at it objectively, is this a good use of my money?
But that's my whole point, is like, it's not, when we talk about reality distortion fields, it's not objective. Like, there are numbers, but you have to interpret the numbers. And so if I'm interpreting, I think if you have favor with the person that you're communicating with, they will interpret the numbers that you give them more favorably.
Exactly. And you could influence that interpretation.
Exactly.
Yes.
If they don't have favor with you, if you're a nobody to them, or you don't have momentum or motion or social proof or all these things that can influence a decision in a major way that play to our biases, then they're going to look at this stuff, and even if you have a gem, if you're sitting on a gold mine, they're going to be like, nah, throw it away, and then you get slept on. And so I think it works both ways. I think that he has this proclivity to tilt it in his favor, and I'm telling you, dude, I was watching the episode that you sent me, with him sitting down with Mark Andreessen and Ben Horowitz. And I was like, I can kind of see it now. We'll get into some of this stuff on the Super Secret episode, but I was like, I can kind of see what he's doing that causes these people to be like, hey, man, just take my money. Just take it. You're better off with it than me. Just take it. And I'll tell you this, I'll go even one further. It's changed how I'm viewing our fundraising and the way that we can make things.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
Adam Neumann has had that much of an effect.
I don't know if this is a good influence or a bad influence, so we're gonna have to track this.
We're gonna open up a real estate company. We're gonna
it's like
no more tech.
Yeah, who owns the constant straight bar? Who owns the constant straight bar?
But we're gonna but we're gonna call it that. So that actually goes into the next thing. So so he has had a profound influence in terms of like pitching, talking about what he's doing. But this is where I'm saying is like it gets weird and muddy, because going back into like, this is the momentum, but going back into like some of the more shady things before we go into the vision is there was some weird things where you're like,
and I mentioned the IPO exit, like that's kind of, that was one for me that I was like, wait a second, but then these other things came out in some of the documentation,
and you go, okay, that's a little strange.
So some of these other ones were
so I mean, this guy obviously knew how to lean into his ambitions and felt like he had no limits.
This is a point of conviction for me. In the last episode, I had a clip where I talked about bending the rules. And I want to just set some of it clear, is that this is an example of bending the rules. Nothing he did was illegal.
Yes.
Nothing he did was illegal.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that you should do these things, But you can't argue the fact that he is still a billionaire,
Yeah.
wildly successful. And so, talking about bending the rules, here we go.
Yeah. Well, I think he's yet to be successful because he didn't quite hit his mark. But
He's a billionaire.
But he came away with.
I'll miss that mark every time.
Yeah, but he came away with a nice compensation prize.
Exactly.
Which is that, and
The win.
so.
What were some of these? Highlight some of these interesting
So
transactions.
He goes, where he goes, the leftiest expectations.
No, 3 of them, but
Yeah. It was pretty interesting just because, like, just some of his quotes. He wanted to become Israel's prime minister. He wanted to. Bibi was like, no. He wanted to become president of the world. Wants to become the first trillionaire. Wants to live forever. Wants to take WeWork to Mars. In reality, it sounds like Elon Musk. So
yeah.
So it's
but
not
without all of the engineering and
well,
the
it's like if you take a Brian
capability.
Johnson, Elon Musk, and then you take Bibi Netanyahu, like that's a description of what he wants to. So what he's saying right now isn't actually that like unheard of in terms of like the
Delusions of grandeur, I
yeah.
think is what it is.
Yeah. But that being said, he comes down here, and so a big part of it, and a big part of the collapse, is when they started to put out their filings for going public. You started to see a lot of these things unravel.
Yeah.
So some of the facts: the company rebranded as We the Company. Files confidential IPO paperwork. Neumann cashed out $700 million before the IPO, which is very unusual.
Which is when I was like, that for me was what I think did it.
Yeah,
but...
a big part of tech founders and financial business people. And again, I went to school for finance and economics. I thought I was going to be in private equity and like that type of stuff. Midway through, I was like, yeah, tech, and I found my passion for that. But a big thing with the difference is that tech founders value their wealth is tied to the success of the company.
Yep.
And so as the company becomes more successful and you have shares in that company, your growth grows accordingly because that's an asset. Those ownerships are assets.
Essentially.
Exactly. But it's uniquely different with tech because of our scale, our ability to scale, and so you see how that goes. In finance, they're making money off of charging fees,
right,
and transactions, management fees, and all that stuff. And so they're literally just taking your cash and pocketing the stuff, sometimes without actually delivering.
Right.
And so that's a very, very, very big difference. And so when you see a tech CEO cash out their shares before they go public, it's like,
something's
off weird.
That's not the only one. One of these other two, at least, that I know about.
So you go, just a couple other things on the S1 filing that they revealed. This is a $47 billion company that's valued at $47 billion.
Yeah.
They had $1.6 billion in losses in a single year. Revenue of $1.8 billion, but then they had losses of $1.9 billion in another year. Neumann had buildings, owned the buildings, and WeWork leased it from him.
Right.
And there was $236 million in future lease payments to himself. So that's a little bit strange.
Weird.
He was buying them in his name and then leasing them to
bending the rules.
He changed the WeWork. He charged WeWork $5.9 million for the We trademark he personally owned. And then the company loans to Neumann were totaling tens of millions of dollars. So he would take money that was invested and then he would loan it to himself from the company. And so that's, again, gray area.
It is gray area in terms of legal, but for me, it's a black and white in terms of a mismanagement of a company.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So here's one thing that I would say. So if I take out $10 million, there's two ways. It's like you can either pay yourself a salary, or you can just be like, hey, I'll just take a $10 million lump sum, and then I'll pay it back too. So I'm actually not taking out any cash from them.
Possibly.
So there's like ways where you can't justify it,
right,
doing those lump sums, especially when you're given if you're given $6 billion from one company and you say, hey, I'm going to take $10 million out, I'll pay it back. It's like, that's a fraction of it,
100%.
Especially if you're expecting success down the road. So again, I can see where you could even be like, even just socially, you can be like, hey, I can see that making sense as opposed to paying yourself $1 million for 10 years as a salary where you don't pay anything back. So
yeah, it's that one, maybe there's some leeway. Again, gray area in terms of legal, or it wasn't illegal. But I do think it was a mismanagement of the company because there are other ways to get paid. if you need to get paid as the CEO, the founder, as anyone in the business.
Yeah, you get.
You know,
paid
there's
as,
other ways to get
you
paid.
can get paid as a. So they said tens of millions in terms of the loan now.
Yeah.
I'm saying you can get paid a salary.
There's that option.
If you get paid a salary, you get double taxed on that.
True.
And then it could end up being the same amount, and you don't pay it back. So that's what I'm saying. If you have a loan, and that means that you're expected to pay it back. So that's what I'm saying. Like
100%.
So if he was, I'm saying like there's a, in terms of the management of it,
it could have been a totally fine management of it. I think there are other options that are a little bit more acceptable, because I think the other thing you have to think about is what was he doing with that $10 million? He was going to buy more buildings to lease back to his company.
I don't know if that's what was happening.
Well, how else would he get the money to buy the buildings? You know, all the buildings that he bought, and if you don't have a salary,
well, he put it in his name. So that's no.
Right.
So what I'm talking about is two different things. I'm talking about the leasing in his name is one thing. I'm talking about the paying of himself. Paying of himself is, it sounds bad on the front of it, but it's different when you, like, it can be, like, it could have actually been different in the practicals of it.
Oh, yeah. In terms of like maybe like a tax shelter or some other ways.
Not even a tax shelter. If it's like, if you give me, like, I could say, all right, you can either pay me $100 and I'll pay you back, or you can pay me $10 a day and I won't pay you back. What would you rather do?
Well, there's a lot more nuance there, right? Because it's like,
that's what I'm getting at. Is like, there's more nuance in the whole thing. It's like, okay, well, what am I doing with the $10, the money? Where does it go? All these other things. It doesn't really look good because he also was, buying things and putting it in his own name and then leasing it out to there. But in that specific thing, I'm like, there's like
that could be explained.
There's a couple different things that could be explained, which kind of. Because a big thing that I'm trying to also reconcile is there's a lot of smart people that look at him and say, oh, no, like, we love Adam Neumann. We support him. We're going to give him another check, et cetera, et cetera. And so I'm also somebody that doesn't just, I don't believe everything I see in the media, especially when presented with more information. And this is one of those cases where you asked me a week ago, I'm like, no, look at all this stuff. But then I got more information and I'm like, okay, maybe it is a little bit of a, we have this story and we're sensationalizing it even more just because it ultimately ended up not working out. Yeah, it's interesting. I think that one could be explained away, but those other two, I'm just like, I'm not sure you would be able to. I mean, you can explain it away in terms of it's not illegal, but I don't know if it's the best way to run a company is to be billing the company for assets that you bought after you had the trademark. But, you know, it's really interesting. Those were just some of the shady stuff. Yeah, those two where he was buying the things in his name and then charging the company for it. That one is like, put it in the company's name.
Yeah,
like, that's
I think that
should
other
be an
one
asset owned by the company.
That third one gets lumped into there because all three of these things are a story of self-enrichment versus company enrichment.
That's the main
and
issue,
that's why that one gets bundled in there, even though it could be explained away like you were saying.
But there's the everything that brought Neumann success. So yeah, there's the whole like self-enrichment versus the building of the company and the wanting to grow of the company. And a big part of that is seeing, even with the fallout, like he ended up leaving with north of $1 billion, close to $2 billion. He charged SoftBank like a $350 million consulting fee. And different things. And again, I think that the pies are a little bit different at that size, and so there is that aspect of it. I'm not ready to say all of the behaviors are unjustifiable. But I do think that there are some glaring ones that we talked about in terms of like the way that he self-enriched over.
Yeah, just the ones we just covered.
What else do we have here? So they finally go public as a SPAC. He ended up getting some more money there, but
it flops. The IPO you're talking about?
Yeah,
flops essentially. Where not only did it not hit those multiples that we were talking about earlier, it actually kind of started that transition of him out of the company. Where I believe it was the board of directors was like, yeah, this isn't really the direction that we need to be taking things. The response to our IPO wasn't what we were expecting, and so I believe it was the board that well,
they did an IPO. They went public via SPAC.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
So
that lever.
yeah.
But I believe the board was like, yeah, we need to replace you as the CEO. I think he stayed on the board for a little bit, maybe a couple weeks, but then ultimately just left.
When did he leave again?
That was was it
Yeah.
I don't think it was 2020 yet. It might 2019 maybe.
Yeah, and then they did their whole thing at 20 in 2022.
Mm-hmm.
But then after 2021 is when they ended up going public, and then they did
Okay.
that. I mean, they did that a $9 billion valuation, which is a far offshoot from the
47.
yeah
That was the private
from
money.
the 47 there, and then looking at all the funds that they've raised, it probably came out as a loss.
Yes.
In terms of like the like a down, it's almost like a down round. A public offering is a down round, which is crazy.
A failure. Yeah. So that was something I know that like started his exit from the company, and then that is where we're talking about this pay package that he gets for exiting the company, and this was in headlines all over the place.
Yeah.
That they were going to give him $1 billion to exit the company.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, he
They-
said.
yeah, go for it.
So a couple things. He goes. So later he ended up saying it was never my intention for the company not to succeed as much as it did. He said he blamed the trademarking situation on the lawyers, and then on the documentaries, what happened in the world. That we can take a person, look exactly like them, put on prosthetics, and then do a show on the narrative that is not factually true. So he's saying there's a lot of misinterpreted facts. And then he ended up, going into exile essentially, and buying up buildings aggressively, like buying up a lot of these different apartment buildings, north of $1 billion. And this was basically him positioning Flow, which is this new venture that he's going out on, an extension of WeWork.
Yes.
In terms of mission and goals, I would say like a refinement. He actually tried to buy back WeWork, but that didn't end up working out. And
Yeah,
it's
they
now
filed for bankruptcy. They filed for bankruptcy.
yeah, and it's now serving as a competitor, in essentially, but it's also more focused on residential
Yes.
living as opposed to just work.
Office spaces.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Flow stuff is where I think it is turning around for him, and turning around in a great way, because he learned so many lessons from the WeWork stuff. And these lessons that he did learn, I really want to talk about that in a super secret. But is there anything you wanted to give here in terms of the Flow stuff? Because I think the Flow is going to be a great example of his vision.
Well, I think one thing that I kind of want to talk a little bit about this. The big thing that we're referencing is that Andreessen Horowitz A16Z,
About 7 months ago, yeah.
where he talked a lot about Flow.
Yep.
So again, Flow is the same idea, but this is where it really started to change for me, and that's in the idea that it's a vertically integrated real estate company, vertically integrated tech and real estate company, which is different.
It is a little bit.
People just looked at it and said, "Oh, they own a bunch of real estate. It's a real estate company, me included." But framed around the idea of, no, we are trying to improve the experience using technology, but we want to own the entire experience.
Right.
Just like, for instance, Tesla has AI, and they're more of an AI company now, but they also own the cars.
Yep.
Where they can install their AI and their software, but then they also own the factory. And in order for them to create the experience they wanted, they needed to do it in a very vertically, tightly integrated way. Apple's another example of that, especially more
Not
in the
even my
past,
favorite
too.
though. No, it's not even my favorite one. My favorite one's Ford, where he had on the Rouge River here. He literally was like, "Yeah, just bring me the steel. bring me the coal, and I'll make the steel. Actually, don't even bring me, finished product. Bring me all the raw products." That was when he had train lines going into his factory that would make from raw products steel that then had to be made into cars. That whole entire. I don't know. For me, that was like a really, and I just got to go see the Rouge plant.
Yeah.
But
yeah, so it's
Apple's another good one.
Yeah, Apple's another good one, and so it's like there are certain cases where it pays to have the full stack,
Right.
Tightly coupled, so you can really create that experience. And framed that way, I started to see it a little bit differently. I started to see, if you are doing that and your goal is to make these really innovative, technologically advanced buildings, it doesn't really make sense to go and lease the building from somebody else and then try and go and retrofit what they're doing.
Yeah, because then you're giving all that value back to the landlord.
And they might not even let you do that. They might just be like, bro, that's not what we're trying to do. Don't mess up our buildings. And so
100%.
to a degree, to get really, really integrated, you have to own it from top to bottom. And if that's what he was pitching a lot of these investors, I can see why after, you know, some back and forth, if you hold your ground, they might be like, okay, this guy really is imagining a different world. We look at a lot of our buildings right now and they're kind of dumb. It's like drywall and
empty now, but yeah.
And then like that's it. But then when you look at how much you could do if you have a really, really, really integrated space in an apartment building, one where it can allow people to be more communal.
Yeah.
Then that can be a really powerful application of technology too.
I think that goes back to what I was saying before, is the fact that with the Andreessen Horowitz, I guess, video, he was showing that stuff. He was showing the technology. He was explaining how, and this was really Ben who was doing a lot of the explaining, but like that was more in the forefront of the business, of the explanations, of the vision. Whereas before, it wasn't, to me at least, right?
Yeah.
It was much more like, yeah, we have tech and it'll be integrated with tech, but like that was as far as it went.
Yeah.
You know, it's much more, hey, this is a cult, this is a community. It's that kind of value. But I think it's smart to lead with the tech value.
Well, he played to his strengths.
100%.
I think this partnership becomes a little bit different because he's a very charismatic guy. And when you put him with some big players, it changes what's possible and what can be done.
Yeah.
Especially in the real estate space. There's a lot of people that rent. There's a lot of people that, I think he said 70% of people under 40 years old.
That's an interesting.
Right.
That's an. We need to go into that in the super secret.
All right, yeah, let's
because that is a very interesting conundrum they're going to face. Very interesting.
Yeah, let's get into it. Let's get into it on the super secret.
Yeah. So you want to wrap it up here because right now we're talking about pretty much all the Adam Neumann stuff, but what he learned from that past failures / successes is what's going to make him successful in the future. And so that's what we're going to talk about super secret. And give some more of our our game on,
and specifically like the reality distortion.
Yes,
I'm gonna get into some shit there. You're not gonna want to miss that.
No, you don't.
You're not gonna want to miss that.
Check it out in the link below on Constance. Anything else you want to tell the people?
No, check it out on Constance, the super secret. We're not gonna be having that open. Like again, we're not gonna be having that open for forever. Those are gonna become very soon behind a paywall.
Yep.
And if you're in, we'll take note of that. We'll figure out a way to keep it as something where, especially if you join the community on there, we'll find a way to make it so that way you can kind of graduate in. But if you're not, then like you're just gonna pay for it. And why would you put yourself in a position where you have to pay for something when you know that you could have just gotten it for free? I mean, that just doesn't even make
and
sense.
Even like to make it even better, we're gonna end on this. The first 3 people that join Constance and tag me at Jake on Constance is gonna get a free year of premium membership.
No,
100%. 100%. I will give you a free year of premium Constance if you tag me in any post on Constance. Let's say in the next week.
Jake's paying for it.
I'm paying for it. I will absolutely pay for that. I will absolutely pay for that.
But yeah, so go on there, check it out. It's there's a lot of dope stuff that we're about to be going over. I mean, the stuff, like, here's another thing too. It's taken me years to learn some of these things, and seeing it in the wild with Adam Neumann is a perfect case of example.
Yes.
Perfect example. So anyways, let's get to it.
All right, y'all. We'll see you next week with another Founders Drive. Peace.